Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my chess channel. In today's episode, I'm gonna show you the game that helped me reach 1200 Elo. It means I'm gonna show you the game I played last, and in this game I reached to 1200 Elo. So what we are gonna do is that we're gonna analyze the game, the tactics I have made, and also the mistake I have done during the game. So without delaying, let's dive into the game. In this game, I played with black pieces and my opponent with white pieces. My opponent start the game with his pawn to g4. I move my pawn to d5. My opponent move with g pawn, and here the good move for black was to move e pawn, taking the central control. But what I thought was I'm gonna move. What I thought was that if I move my e pawn, my opponent will gonna move his f pawn, and if I take with f pawn, then I'm gonna expose my king, and I really didn't like to expose my king early. So what I do, I hoped for a pawn exchange. My opponent captured my pawn. I captured it back with my knight. We simply develop our pieces. Takes, and here the best move for white was to simply develop his bishop or move the a pawn and kicking out my bishop. That should be the plan, but my opponent move is queen. I move my d pawn. Opponent move is a pawn, takes, and I move my bishop back. So after a few moves, I castle, and after a few takes, we are in this position. Here, I move my e pawn. So simply, the idea was, if my opponent gonna move, takes it with pawn, I'm gonna simply threaten to capture queen. So if my opponent takes it with bishop, I'm gonna simply capture it with bishop rook. I'm gonna capture his rook, and we're gonna exchange. This was the plan, and I am upper material. Or if after this move, if my opponent tries to move away like this, so my opponent does any other silly move, I'm gonna simply capture. If he capture it my rook, if he capture my rook, I'm gonna simply capture it back, or I'm gonna give a sorry, I'm using the keypad and it's really difficult. I'm gonna give a check. This, I'm simply giving a check, capturing the rook. Here capturing the queen. So I'm up a piece. So if my opponent captured it with his pawn, and if he captured it with the rook, I'm gonna simply threaten to capture it. So if my opponent does it like this, I'm gonna do this. Here, if my opponent does this, then I'm hoping for exchange, queen exchange, because I'm up a material. I'm in big advantages. So, or if my opponent capture it with rook, I'm gonna simply exchange the queen and a rook, and still I'm in advantages. Yeah, this was my point. So my opponent captured it with the rook, and here the move I should have played was to capture f1, and after this move I should have simply moved my bishop to g2, and if my opponent g2, so if my opponent does like, if he capture it, then I'm gonna simply go this, and I'm in a good advantages. If my opponent like move here, I'm gonna give a check. So I'm in advantages. Anyway, I was in big advantage. Or if my opponent try to move this, then I'm simply gonna move here, and my opponent gonna go for here. So I was in good position. So here, that was the idea. That should have been the idea. But my opponent, after this move, my opponent moved is queen to e1 takes here. Here I was hoping for a rook x. So here I should have simply captured the bishop because the queen is white king is pinned with the rook. After a few moves, we exchange our pieces. So here I was simply hoping to move. Sorry, I was simply hoping to move my bishop, and if you move like this, or if you move like this, I'm gonna exchange the rook. I was hoping for a exchange, pieces exchange. The most hoping for this. So after this move, I move my s pawn. This I gave a check. My opponent gave up on position. After a few moves, I move my f. I move my rook to f1 because if my opponent does anything else like this, I'm gonna give a check, and it's ultimately a checkmate. My opponent sees this. My opponent move his rook, so I'm, I can no longer move my rook to h1. So I move my rook to f2. After d pawn to d4, I move my rook to s2, and my opponent resign. So here, if my opponent continue to play and move block his rook, then I'm gonna win this game with a mate. So this was the game I played last, and I reached to 1200 elo. So if you want to see more of my videos and more of the game analysis, please subscribe to my channel, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you.